He has a body of work that any director would be envious of. He has an Oscar. He has a new film. It is called Sabrina. I am pleased to have director Sidney Pollack back on this program. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Just a couple out of Africa, Best Picture, Best Director, and nominated for Tootsie and also for They Shoot Horses, Don't They?
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
I was talking to Greg Kinnear here in our interview that has not.
He's funny, isn't he?
Yeah. Now, but I will talk about him later, but let's first talk about this film. Why did Sidney Pollack, with that, when you go to your office, there's that long corridor, because you and I did an interview for another program recently, and you've got all these pictures and all these, what do they call them?
Posters. Oh, they're one sheets.
All these movies that you've done. You know, why this one? Not that you shouldn't do it, but it's a remake of Billy Wilder.
Well, I thought the same way in the beginning. I really didn't want to do a remake, and I sure didn't want to do one of Billy Wilder. He's it's a formidable guy.
A tough club.
I wouldn't try to, improve on that. But they were persistent. I kept saying no, and they were persistent. And then I'll tell you what really happened was Harrison called, and I am just a huge fan of his, and I'm particularly a fan when he does something like Witness. I remembered him in the non-action movies. I love him in the action movies, but he doesn't very often get a chance to do a real love story. I like to do love stories, and they're tough to do, and they're tough to cast, and so I thought, well, I wish I could figure out a way to make this work. And what happened is, as I started to think about it, and I started to kind of define for myself why I didn't want to make it, I got sort of hooked on what I kept telling myself, which was, I kept sort of saying, I don't know how you can combine the romantic sensibilities of the 50s, sort of innocent romantic sensibility of the 50s, with the cynical realism of the 90s. And I started talking to Harrison about that, and I said, gee, I really don't think they're going to mess.
He wanted to do it.
Well, he wanted to do the picture.
If you would do it.
Well, he said that, and he was trying to push me into doing it. We only really had one long conversation on the phone. And as I kept talking about this unlikely combination, I got sort of hooked on the challenge of it. I thought, geez, it'd be kind of interesting if you could get a real romantic fairy tale, the kind of movie I can remember going to where you'd go in and you'd just get lost for a couple of hours in another world, a world that wasn't yours. I used to always be surprised that it was daylight when I came outside and said, geez, how did it get to be daylight?
Yeah, because this is a whole different place.
Yeah, and we don't make a lot of those kind of movies now. It's a more cynical time now. We want to make movies that are closer to what we feel is our reality and the world we live in all the time. So I thought I would try this and see if I couldn't combine it with some of that toughness, and a lot of that came from Harrison, because we tried to update and change that character into a real 90s tycoon, the kind of guys that buy and sell companies for breakfast. And there are a lot of them, and we know them. And I thought he was an interesting character. I mean, if there hadn't been an original Sabrina, I would have probably called this Linus and Sabrina, because that character is as important in this film as Sabrina is. He's much more important than Linus was in Billy Wilder's original. It was more of a real ensemble piece.
Harrison Ford.
He's extraordinary. I mean, he is one of the easiest guys to work with. I mean, I had a really great time with him. He's really smart and simple. A lot of common sense, and very, very decent guy, and doesn't require any handling or any special stroking or.
You mean there's some out there that do?
Well, sometimes, but no, he's just up front and who he is and what he is, and he's comfortable in his skin in a way that very few people I know are, and he's not fooled by his station in the business. I mean, he's confident of it, but he doesn't turn it into something that it isn't.
Define his station in the business.
Well, I think he's absolutely one of, if not, I mean, some people say the
biggest box office star.
I mean,
probably his movies have made more money than anybody's movies alive
I think somebody
today.
said he's been in I'm not sure I got these numbers right, but I know I'm not exaggerating. He's been in 7 of the top 20 box office films of all time, 4 of the top 10. 4 of the top 10, 7 of the top 20. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
What is the connection, you think? I mean, obviously those were some of Steven Spielberg and other films made by great directors and a lot of appeal,
Lucas,
but he also has something that's...
Yeah, he does.
Is probably what you just described.
Well, men and women like him. He's not, he's, you know, I watch when we walk around and we go out of the country and come back, the customs guys want to get autographs. Yeah. The cops want to get autographs, you know, the cabbies want to get autographs. He
doesn't intimidate them, and there's a warmth that they feel about him.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I can articulate precisely what it is. He's one of the guys that doesn't seem to be divorced from the rest of us, but he's still a movie star. It's a very hard thing to have.
He lives away from Los Angeles, doesn't he?
He lives in
Montana,
Wyoming.
Somewhere.
Jackson
Wyoming.
Hole. Yeah.
Yeah, he lives in Jackson Hole.
Yeah, has for a long time.
Yeah.
And is I guess everybody knows he's a carpenter and a terrific carpenter. Really was a great carpenter.
He built his own house out there as a
Well, he built a lot of it. And
stuff like that.
Joan Didion and John Dunn, the writers, used to have a house at the beach in Malibu, and he built their staircase, a lot of their cabinet work, and they always say he was the best carpenter they ever had.
Is that right? So if it doesn't work out in the movies...
Oh, yeah, he's always got that to fall back on.
Yeah. How about Greg Kinnear? Why did you choose him?
Well,
you called him up. He didn't call you, right?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I couldn't find... I mean, you know, it's one of those things. Necessity is the mother of, and you know the rest.
And you were looking for what?
Well, I was looking for somebody who could be Harrison's brother, younger brother, somebody who could behave in the most ridiculous way, and you would forgive him. I mean, he had to have a kind of guilelessness, if you will, you know, because this is a guy who hits on every girl, and he's engaged to one girl, he's hitting on 12 others. He doesn't even know what day it is. He spends the family money like it's going out of style. He doesn't ever go to work. And so it had to be somebody who was kind of boyish in a way that you'd forgive. And I couldn't come up with anybody other than Cruise. I mean, I kept thinking about Tom Cruise. I just made a film with him, and I.
This was The Firm?
Yeah, exactly. And we talked about it, but it really wasn't a big enough part. He was getting ready to do Mission Impossible, and I just couldn't find anybody. So I started looking everywhere. I started looking on television. I started looking on talk shows. I stared looking for talk show hosts. Really, literally.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I looked at situation comedy people. I looked at everybody, and.
Did you call up? I mean, Billy Hopkins? Who did this? Who was your casting agent?
Well, we had David Rubin.
Because he did Oliver. He did Oliver Stone's film.
Yeah, David Rubin was my casting.
And you went to him
and
said, "Tell me what you've got," and he came back with no ideas.
No. It actually came from a woman who runs my company. I have a company called Mirage.
Right.
And Lindsay Duran. We were going down lists, and we were talking about everybody. You know, including you. I mean, you know, it was literally
you were really way down there, weren't you?
No. I mean, we were saying what is where's an area that we haven't thought of? Who's on television? Who's doing talk shows? Who's doing situation comedies? Who's in a series that hasn't broken out yet? Who could we get that's, you know, a fresh face?
Right.
And looking at everybody, Greg's name came up, and I saw really just one of those talk soup things that he was doing at that time, and I had him come in. And I thought he had the charm, and he had the right look for it. Yeah. He had never acted before, and so I just read with him, just easy, just kind of, you know, tried to get him not to act or not to do too much, and he had a kind of easy naturalism, I guess you would say, and so I taped him with my little high 8.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah,
and then I worked with him for a week, a couple hours every day, one scene at a time.
Teaching him timing, teaching him
No.
What do you teach in a week?
I don't say I really taught him anything. What I tried to do...
He says you did.
Well, what I tried to do is get him to listen, which is the real key to almost all acting, and it sounds much simpler than it is. But good actors always begin by getting their attention off what they're doing and on to the other guy, and that means listening. That's the first thing.
And I bet it also means that the naturalness takes over. Whatever natural juices they are begin to come out, so that you know, all the tension that builds up. If you're listening, you're focusing on what the other person's saying.
Exactly right.
So all of your instincts are not like this.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, in some way, I'm controlling your behavior right now, making you say right, without having to think of it. Yes, you smiled, but you didn't think about smiling. Exactly. I made you smile because we're connected, and so. And the same thing. Yeah. That idea, for starters, and then other than that, to try to understand that it's not anything different than what he does every moment of every day. That it's, you know, it's
living
just,
and breathing.
Yeah, and talking and listening and asking a question, accusing somebody of something or whatever. Try to break it down into little strokes like that. And I thought he did amazingly well. I mean, he picked it up. I felt he was directable. And then I taped those individual scenes that we worked on each one of those days. And then I just, at some point, you just take a chance. The whole picture was a gamble anyway. So what the hell? I might as well gamble all the way.
As we tape this, it is Friday afternoon.
Very tough Friday afternoon.
Tell me about it.
Well, it's opening day for, you know, another expensive...
$50 million on the line.
Yeah, which
big
is becoming...
Star.
Yes.
Harrison Ford.
Yes.
Big director, Sidney Pollack.
And in a crowded marketplace where if you open the New York Times today and look at the ads for the picture, well, you got Heat, Jumanji, Nixon. Our picture, you have all the big holdovers. You have American President and Casino, and you have Toy Story. You have the Money Train. You have Othello's opening. You know, in New York, that's a big. It's a huge, huge mark.
And
what
you want desperately is just to get a sampling. You want people to say, Harrison Ford, Sabrina, remake, Sidney Pollack, Julie Orman. Let's take a chance. Let's go watch it.
Yeah, I just want to get
those that don't read Janet Maslin's review in the New York Times.
Well, she gave it a good review. So we've got a lot of good reviews on the television. You know, we got very good...
Is that any indication for you?
Well, no, it just means that it reaches a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people watch those network reviewers. You know, they watch...
Siskel and Ebert and all those...
Yeah, those guys gave us 2 thumbs up, and Shallot was great today, and Joel Siegel was great, and all those reviews were good.
Have you ever made a film in which all those were good, and all thumbs up and good, and ought to see, and then the box office didn't respond?
I made the best reviewed film I ever made in my life. Didn't make any money.
What was that?
That's called They Shoot Horses, Don't They? And I won all kinds of prizes.
Did Jane Fonda win an award? Or
no, she was nominated. We had 11 Academy Award nominations. We
didn't make any money.
No, but it was just too downbeat at the time. I mean, it's being redone now on a laser disc because it's a 25-year-old film now. Gig Young won an Oscar for it. He won, and Jane was nominated. I was nominated. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated for Best Score. It was nominated for costumes, for editing, and you know, it didn't cost hardly any money, but nobody went to see it, and it got as good a reviews as I've ever had on any film. But they do count for something. I mean, they won't stop a picture that audiences really like, and they won't make you go to a picture that audiences don't want to go to. That's happened a lot, but they are important.
This clip is Do I Look Stupid? Set it up for me.
Do I Look Stupid is, well, this irresponsible Mr. Kinnear, as I told you, is about to be married.
And he plays the role that William Holden played in the original.
Totally irresponsible guy, never goes to work, is the younger brother of a family that's worth billions, and is about to be married to a young woman which will help make a billion-dollar merger possible between these two families. But suddenly his fancy has been taken by the chauffeur's daughter, who has returned home, Julia Ormond.
Right.
Now, this is a terrible thing for the mother. It's a terrible thing for the brother.
It's a terrible thing for the business.
Terrible thing for the business.
All right. Roll tape. Sabrina. Nancy Marchand's great, isn't she?
She's wonderful. She's just wonderful. And a really... this role sort of takes over all of the comedy that was carried in the original movie by both the mother and father. There was a great comic father there, and I felt, rightly or wrongly, we felt, all of us that worked on the script, felt that it would be a little more contemporary to have the mother running the business in the 90s.
3 questions. One is directing and acting. You seem to be doing more acting lately.
Well, that's not by choice. I mean, what happened, honestly, was I think I may have talked to you about this on an earlier show years ago, but I got really pushed into doing it with Dustin on Tootsie. That was his idea, and he's got to take the blame or the credit. I mean, he really forced me to do it. And because of that, I started to occasionally get some acting offers. And then when Woody Allen sent me that script, it was such a delightful script. I mean, it was a wonderful script of Husbands and Wives. That was the biggest part that I was ever offered in a film, and I wanted to do it because I like his work so much.
Yeah, you don't turn down Woody much.
Yeah, and I really was curious to see how he worked, and I thought it would be interesting. I don't like doing it when I'm directing. I hated it on Tootsie. It's really hard. I don't know how guys do it. But then the other things really, honestly, have just been favors for people. I mean, Altman got stuck one night on the player. He was supposed to have Blake Edwards playing this lawyer, and he called, and he's an old friend, and he said, help me out, and I went down for one day. It wasn't much of a part.
You love it. You love doing it. You love getting out there. You started out as an actor. It's fun.
Charlie, if I loved it, I'd be doing it all the time. I'd get a lot of offers to do it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, not great parts necessarily,
but interesting parts.
Well, sometimes they're more interesting than others.
And you turn them down?
I don't have a lot of time to do it, number one. And number two, I really have given acting up in a way and gotten myself into this
I thought you'd sort of come around to a point where you're enjoying it again. I mean, you'd proved yourself as a director. You know you can direct whenever you want to. They're always calling you and you're saying, hey, let's have some fun acting.
I enjoyed doing Husbands and Wives because it was a real role. If I got offered a role like that was really interesting, I would do it. I would do it if I had the time. But directing is a weird job. It as you know, I'm 8 months sometimes in pre-production, and I can't take a month out of that or 2 months out of that. It's really hard. I mean, I was really lucky when the Woody Allen thing came up that I could take the time.
What I don't know, we've talked about this at length, and I'm not going to sort of go over to replow old ground, but I don't understand why you're anxious anymore. Why you still.
Well, I think if you get over being anxious, you're dead in this business. Well, I mean, you're always anxious. You're always concerned that people will like the work you do. You can't help it. I mean, part of the reason you do it first for yourself, because it's the only measure you can take of it, and then it's something that you've made to be put out there for people to watch. Now, if all those people look at it and they go,
"Oh, he's lost it,"
that's gotta bother you. So you are nervous, about it. I mean, I don't mean that you're sitting there biting your nails. You do get used to it, but you can't not care about it. And opening weekends, which are what we're going through right now, are always sort of anxiety provoking.
Harvey Weinstein of Miramax once told me that by the 2 o'clock on Friday night when the movies open here in New York, generally, he'll know what it's going to look like, and he'll have a real good indication as to whether he's got a hit on his hands.
Oftentimes that's true. It's not always true.
Yeah,
there are movies, yes, there are films. Well, the famous one was Arthur, which was, that's almost a historical movie for that reason, is that it didn't open strong and it went on to do a lot. There are all kinds of films that sort of open moderately, but hang in.
Word of mouth.
Hang in. Yes, they'll do $1 million a week for as many weeks as you want them to do it.
Yeah.
And there's not great money, but it mounts up. It's very hard in today's marketplace to do that because terms are different. What happens is the longer you run a picture, the less money you're getting in terms of the split with the theater owners.
Yeah.
So today there's a lot of hype and a lot of marketing. That's why you just sort of bludgeoned to death with ads, because they want the first week to do it.
Yeah. And are they anxious to get it on cassette, too, because they get such a return? They get more return today from the video cassette sales than they do from the box office sales.
Sometimes.
It's not the majority of the time?
I'm not the expert on that, but I wouldn't say it's the majority.
You think it's box office more than video?
Well, it's a combination, but if you take a picture like...
Maybe I'm thinking of foreign sales.
Yeah, foreign sales can be huge. I mean,
no, maybe I'm thinking, but, well, I don't know what I'm thinking.
It's all different. I mean, you can take the breakdown of a picture that might be something like a really big hit might be $150 million of box office in the United States, and let's say $100 million of box office foreign, and then $35 million in television and cable sales, and then $30 million in video cassettes,
then it's
and then
rarely
another 25 foreign video cassettes, let's say. I mean, I've had pictures that have done that, and it's not uncommon for a hit movie to do those kind of numbers.
Great to have you here. Sidney Pollack. The film is called Sabrina, starring Harrison Ford and Greg Kinnear and Julia Ormond.
Julia Ormond, wonderful girl.
A very attractive lady as well. Great to see you, my friend.
You too.
We'll be back. Stay with us.